Here's another game from the Fide World Cup between GM David Navara with the white pieces and Bulgarian Grandmaster Ivan Cheparinov, who was at one time Veselin Topalov's second during his World Championship run. Very strong grandmasters here. This was an interesting game with an even more interesting ending. So we see this English from Navara, and Cheparinov plays in Nemzo-Indian fashion. Of course, there's a lot of transpositional possibilities here. This is why a lot of people like playing the English. From here, the game could easily shift into a Nemzo-Indian here. Queen's Gambit decline. Right? Even possibility of transposing into a Benoni. There's many a lot of room here. And now we have this like Botvinnik system played. Another transpositional possibility. E4 and D5 is played here by Cheparinov. Navara opts for E6, E5. And now white can easily take on an isolated pawn position if he so desired. After a quick trade in the center. And this usually appeals to attacking players. This reminds me of another variation that is sometimes played. If you look at some of the games of Russian Grandmaster Alexei Dreyev against the move C4, he would often play C6, being a Karol Khan player. And a lot of English players, in response to C6, will opt for this continuation E4 when the game can transpose into a Panov-Botvinnik system. Where you get this D5, and E takes D5, C takes D5, C takes D5, and Knight F6. Again, not bring the queen out because you don't want to lose the tempo after Knight C3. And then you get, again, the similar type position. So it's a rich position, possibilities. Another position this present game reminds me of is one that occurs in Alekhine defense at the E4, Knight F6, and Knight C3. Excuse me. But a lot of lazy players play this move instead of seeking the advantage. They'll play this move, which of course black could equalize going to a Vienna immediately. But some Alekhine players want to keep the game truly Alekhine, so to speak, and they'll play D5. Afterwards, you'll get these type of scenarios. Of course, black can go here, here, or he can just play D4. E takes, 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 and then you get these type of systems. So let's say bishop takes, takes, and then you have all type of scenarios. So that's what came to mind when I saw this game, as there's a plethora of possibilities and similar type positions here. So with this E5, it goes into the position, a similar type position in Alekhine. So what I've showed you, of course, there's some different factors like C4s in the position, etc. But just to have a familiar foundation to look back on can guide you sometimes in such positions. So B takes C3 is played. Queen takes F6. So what do we have here? We have this kind of jumbled pawn structure here with some open lines for white, but black has extremely solid position. What he has to be on guard for is moves like knight f3, d4, and then bishop g5 harassing the queen. That is really white's main threat, if there is one in the position. The other is to, of course, play d4 and just have more space than black. So the idea of having more space in the open lines usually means that the player that has the space in the open lines is going to look for an attacking game. This in combination with the queen being out so early, white is going to argue that the queen can become a liability for black, whether be it from being overexposed or just losing time and having to move it out of danger. And so white is going to try to play a dynamic game here, because as I often discuss in my other videos, it's basically two sides. There's the dynamic side, and then there's the static side in chess. The static side is if you were just to freeze the game and just count material as it is, count pieces, count the value of everything. All right, back again. Sorry about the interruption. All right, so I was talking about the two sides, right? The two issues. You have dynamics in chess, and then you have like the static features. The static features being like things that basically on their own are considered good or bad. Like for instance, when we say double pawns, well, double pawns statically are bad. Isolated pawns statically are bad. And when I say statically, I mean like in the isolated sense, like frozen sense of the concept. They're bad. Double pawns, isolated pawns, backward pawns. Those are like bad when you just look at them without considering any other factors in the position, just by themselves. Things that are good, the bishop pair, right? Rook on the 7th rank, knight on e5. Things that when we think of them totally isolated from other factors, we say they're good or bad. Those are static features. The dynamic features are the same things, but in combination, right, with all the other factors in the position, right? They're double pawns, but those double pawns are covering important squares and restricting the enemy pieces. See, now it's like more factors being involved in the position, and dynamics mitigate certain weaknesses. Like right here in this position, yes, white's pawns are messed up, right? He has a bad pawn structure. But is he losing the game? Is he worse? The answer is no, because he has other factors. Like for instance, he has the open lines, the pair of bishops, plus black's queen is a bit exposed, right? So he has an easy development for his pieces, right? It's easy to put the rook on b1, easy to play d4, knight f3, bishop d3, castle, king side, bishop g5, right? Easy development. So these things, these dynamic factors mitigate what defects that are there statically in the position. All right, and it's the mastery of these concepts, the combination, of static factors and dynamic factors that really make these GMs stand out, because they know when to take on double pawns, they know when to take on an isolated pawn, when not to, etc. When to have a backward pawn, when it's acceptable to give up the bishop pair or trade a bishop for a knight, etc. Right? There's judgment. Let's go on. That was a little long-winded. Let's go on. So after queen takes f6, knight f3, e5. So of course, taking this share in the center, right, allowing the bishop to be able to come out. Also, some lines threatening to play e4, and d4 is played right away. Okay, knight c6, and there it is again, taking the advantage of the queen's position, being vulnerable like that, and gaining a free tempi. And again, these are the factors that offset the bad state of the pawns. Queen g6, d5. Okay, so notice that if this pawn is not here on d4, right? Perhaps in some lines that the knight might be able to come here. Of course, it can't here. You got the queen and knight, but you never know because the queen is attacking its bishop. So maybe this knight will be able to come here. You see, so the double pawns in this case actually help white to cover some key squares, right? And you see these pawns driving the black pieces away. h4, h6, h5, scanning space. Bishop e3. Now black has to be careful to watch out for a move like c5, harassing the queen. Okay, so we could see on black side, he has a beautiful structure, right? Beautiful structure, and he would love to, get it wind down to an ending, get his pieces out, etc. Right, and play. So he's playing more positionally, where white is playing a more dynamic game. Knight d7, again fighting for this square. Queen a4, pinning the knight, fighting for this square. Queen a3, offering a trade. Queen b3, offering a trade, but on white's terms. Black doesn't agree to those terms. He plays a5, trying to secure this square for a piece. White would love the knight to be here because with these two pawns not blockaded, with these two pawns on the c file like that, it would be impossible to drive a piece off of the c5 square. And there's a formation in the Nimzo-Indian that's known as the Wyville formation, and very similar to this one, where a piece can be dropped in and unassailed because the pawns are doubled like this. Queen c2, queen d6. So the exchange of queens is avoided. Black gets his control over this square, so that's a plus for black. Bishop d3, bishop e7, rook to d1, a5, gaining more space on the queen side, castles, and rook e1. b6, just more influence on the c5 square. In some cases, this bishop can come out here. Again, in other openings, similar openings, you see the attack on the c pawn sometimes. Check. And king h8. Queen f6. g4. Again, you see Navara playing very, very aggressively because he has to. I mean, black has a better pawn structure and better prospects going as the game goes further and further toward the ending. So Navara, based on his opening decision, has to play like this dynamic attacking chess where he may have to sacrifice pawns and things like that for activity. We see him going for the attack over here on the queen side, on the king side. Queen d6. Bishop c1, guarding the squares. a3. Bishop takes d7, so Navara parts with his bishop here, and it stops a very powerful knight from jumping to c5. Bishop takes d7. However, black really doesn't have anything to worry about. Also, the knight being gone allows black to be able to pick up this pawn. However, if he takes the pawn, that will cost him an exchange, because the bishop can come here. So knight takes e5, bishop a4. It's not a problem. And queen f5. Now the idea, of course, is to get the exchange back, because there will be a fork here with this check. And rook takes f7 is forced. So that's Navara's idea. Bishop takes d1, knight takes f7 check, rook takes f7, and queen takes f7. So he's basically taking the trade of the f pawn for the e pawn. Bishop h4 from Cheparinov. And of course, moves like rook f8 right on tap. g5 from Navara. Idea now being, if rook f8, then just rook e8 with the pin. Okay, and then of course if rook takes, let's just show you, if rook takes, then queen takes, followed by g6. Bishop a4. If you saw the broadcast earlier, Sokolov was talking about this move being unnecessary. Of course, trying to preserve peace and stuff, but simply bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, h takes g5, followed by rook d1, and then rook f8. And let's say, for example, queen e6, queen f4. It should secure a draw for black. King is exposed, and white has his own weaknesses to worry about. That's just queen e2. And can just go right into the endgame here. And again, it should be an easy draw. However, after bishop a4, this allows an unnecessary attacking tempi for Navara. And he plays a real obvious move, rook e7, just threatening mate in one. And it really doesn't get any more primitive than that. So now the defense is real suspect at this point. After bishop takes f2, just simply king h1, avoiding any kind of checks. And Cheparinov was forced to resign. Why did he make the desperado bishop take f2 sacrifice? Because after rook e7, how do we defend this pawn right here? Have to defend the mate. The only move that's possible is rook g8. So play can continue. For instance, bishop f8, hitting the queen, queen d8, and now bishop f5. Now this pin is very strong against that pawn, as this pawn is no longer protecting this pawn. I say queen f8, offering an exchange of queens. Now white has a nice little tactic. Queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes. And you can see the exchange being lost here. King g8, bishop takes, king takes, and rook takes. Here, rook c8, king e7, rook b8, and white is going to win another pawn. And all of these pawns should win down the road for white, even against these two bishops. For instance, king d7, then rook takes b6. So after rook e7, that was pretty much curtains for Cheparinov. Just a oversight. Again, just after g5, just simply just capture and just draw the game. So it happens to the best of us. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that game, and please like and comment, and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And I'll see you soon on the next video.